Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 242. Oh, I'm so excited. What is professional development? Let me tell you how we got here. This is a really interesting story. So, a remarkable PhD student contacted me via Skype. He'd been watching our Industry University series and wanted to get himself organised for professional development and wanted to create a professional development plan. And he contacted me to help him do that. But he was quite concerned because he raised this matter with his PhD supervisor, his advisor, and his PhD supervisor had replied, quote, "You won't need any professional development, just get the articles out, get the PhD finished, and you'll get a postdoc." End of quote. Now, this was a hard-working student, had worked incredibly hard, was doing what the supervisor wanted him to do. But having looked at the statistics about what does happen to PhD students, was somewhat concerned. And so asked me, "Tara, why is my supervisor giving me that advice? If you can tell me about that, that would help me." But also, and he was lovely, he said that great line, "Look, I don't want to ask a stupid question." I went, "Ask a stupid question." And he said, "Could you do vlogs on what is professional development and why do it? Could you just do really straightforward vlogs for us about what it is and why we should do it? And then we can talk about it with our supervisor and then I can get on with it." So this young man obviously wanted to remain anonymous, and I remain absolutely thrilled. It's a privilege to deliver these vlogs to you. Again, I would never ever have thought of these vlogs. It's just remarkable. And you inspire me. And, you know, as I always said, there are no stupid questions. There are only stupid people that won't answer important questions. And what is professional development is a great question, and therefore has become a great vlog that I wouldn't have created without you. So I hope this delivers the information and the context to help you make decisions. You've got a wonderful future ahead of you. All right, so let's go. What is professional development? And next week, why do it? Okay, let's do this. And by the way, is there a better way to sort of gently move out of our industry university engagement trilogy than this? So this is just a gift. So thank you so much. So let me maybe start with why your supervisors or advisors out there in the North American system might be saying to you, don't do professional development. Where would this be coming from? Okay. A lot of your supervisors are my age. We're Generation X. There's still some baby boomers at the university, but most supervisors these days are my age, Generation X. And I finished my PhD in 1994, like many of your supervisors, advisors. Now, I know a lot of you weren't actually born in 1994. Thank you so much for sharing that information with me. That makes me feel really good. But it does actually, because what happened was I, as you know, did a research master's before it. So I finished the research master's in 1992. So I've got experience in two different universities of doing research qualifications, a master's degree and a PhD at the period that a lot of your supervisors were doing their research degrees. And let me tell you about doing a research higher degree at that time. Absolutely none, no, none, professional development was available for students to do. So there was no how to write a literature review, no how to construct your CV to get a job, and know how to write a teaching philosophy so you actually know how to teach and stuff. So we did the research for the thesis with good or poor supervision. So we did the thesis, we did the research, we submitted it, and we were out. It was over. Nothing else happened around it. It was all about an individual supervisor, and our life, our destiny in so many ways was wedded to the vagaries of that particular supervisor. So the support for attaining work was absolutely non-existent. Some of you may remember my famous story that sadly is true, that my PhD supervisor said that I would be a part-time tutor for him until I was 35. Now, of course, he also recommended that I didn't take the full-time job in Aotearoa, New Zealand to start my academic career. And of course, that was the start of my academic career. It was the best decision I ever made. And he's, oh, don't go to New Zealand. You'll never make it back. Right, so I had absolutely no idea about higher education as a workforce. None. And was recommending stuff to me that was wrong. Okay. So at this point, there was nothing, absolutely nothing outside the PhD. You did it and you left. Thanks. Now, long time ago, what's happened since that time? Let's go through the contextual sociological changes. Firstly, the number of PhD students around the world, whoosh, has gone up enormously. Secondly, there is a reduction in the full-time and permanent academic staff at a university. So, if you like, the workforce of international higher education, the number of tenured academics is declining. Similarly, there's a reduction in the number of PhD students who take a university job. Can you see what's happening here? And of course, then we've now got the radical diversification of PhD students far beyond the young man or the young woman that existed in the early to mid 1990s. So this was a simpler time with fewer students and also undertrained supervisors. They didn't know what they didn't know. Okay, so students completed a PhD at one university and then they went off and got a job in another university. Or they didn't, and we never heard from them again. Okay, so as you can pick up, supervisors were not trained to supervise students. There was no training. They supervised as they thought they should supervise, or perhaps more disturbingly, they supervised as they think they were supervised on the way through. So this is homology, this is crazy homology. And you'll notice very few academics have any teaching qualifications of any kind, so they're an academic and they simply perpetuated supervision by how they were supervised. You can see a train wreck is coming here. This was also, can I say though, an under-regulated time. And what I mean by that is very few enforced research codes of conduct were in place. Certainly the Vancouver Protocol was hovering about, but was never summoned, had no teeth, was not used. And there were very few regulations of personal, professional and sexual relationships between students and supervisors. So, supervisors had no PD, let alone their students. This is the story. Now, this was the time that a successful academic supervisor would somehow inspire their students. It was an inspirational, charismatic model, if you will. If we inspire students, then through that inspiration, they'll magically become successful. Okay, the problem with that system is that the supervisor never gets external information to explain to them what they don't know. They know what they know, but they don't know what they don't know. Okay, so 20 years ago, these sociological changes started to emerge in PhD programs. More women appeared. That's a pretty visible change. More women appeared. Now, women are still not 50% of most PhD programs, but it now is getting pretty close. Okay. Also, international students and international student mobility in doctoral programs increased. Now that's significant. Remarkable international students start to emerge in doctoral programs. There've been a few up to this time, but now it's actually an international movement, a mobility program. And also, and this is more important than I can convey in words, a few, and I mean a very few, remarkable, courageous Indigenous students clawed their way through a colonial system and gained success against the odds, fighting every step of the way with a neo-colonial university system, completely disengaged from decolonising imperatives. As you can see also what was happening is students with impairments started to appear in our PhD program. So remember, 20% of the Australian population have impairments. We're now at about 5% of students in a PhD program have an impairment, but that number is increasing. Okay, And of course the other very visible change is the average age of PhD students started to increase, and it's still increasing. But one thing stayed the same, well, it sort of did, and that is the high attrition rates in PhD programs, right? So 50% of students that start don't finish. And that was a commentary on supervision, I would argue, but people may disagree with me, knock yourself out. But what became significant as the diversification of doctoral programs emerged, the attrition was composed of, you know what's coming, women, students, citizens of colour, students with disabilities, older students. They attrited. So as you can see, this individual model of supervisor as God is failing, has failed. And at this point, the scale of this failure, at this point, the professional development, the training for supervisors started to appear. And can I say, it came only after professional development for staff in undergraduate teaching programs, you see, because what was happening is the widening participation agenda from 1990, the year 2000. So of course the number of students at universities in undergraduate programs was increasing. And the attrition rate in those undergraduate programs was shocking, absolutely shocking, because it was clear that academics had actually no real idea how to teach beyond sort of getting up and doing a lecture about something and sitting down again, right? So no sense about how we configure multimodality, relationship between form and content, the configuration of assessment, differentiated assessment, information scaffolding. They had no expertise in any of those variables, so they were just teaching as they'd always taught, and students were failing. Okay, so after some teaching preparation was required for undergraduate education, that these days we see as sort of like a graduate certificate in higher education, most universities have that, then at that point they went, okay, well we're needing all this training for undergraduates, I wonder what's happening in the postgraduate space. And the answer is, of course, high levels of attrition. So that's when the supervisory training imperatives started to emerge. Now, this remains controversial, supposedly. And can I say, every single day, and I mean every single day, I'm going to go to work now, every single day that I go to work, I have a supervisor complaining that they have to do 1 hour of professional development. Complaining. I'm not going to do it. Digging themselves in, going hard, not going to do it. So what's going on that literally sitting and listening to 1 hour of professional development and participating and improving, that is an affront to their status? What's going on here? Now, for the student requesting this vlog, you can see the consequence of that supervisory behaviour on the students, because the supervisors are then saying to the students, well, you don't need professional development, you don't need it. I obviously don't need it, but you don't need it either. And it's no surprise that they're really not recommending that students do different things, gain different voices, learn different ideas. And remember, whenever you hear the phrase from a supervisor, just focus on the thesis, that's code. That's code from a supervisor to neglect professional development, assuming that you're going to be an academic and everything's okay. Now, what we learned from the last 20 years, let alone what we learned from the last year, is that it's not going to be okay. That you need a plan A, certainly, but a plan B, C, D, E, and F, maybe right the way through to Z. Because, this is everything to me, you have the right to earn a living in difficult times. You have a right to earn a living in difficult times. And if plan A fails, you need a plan B to earn a living. So we'll talk about in the next vlog why you do professional development. But I wanted to just finish off our vlog today with the what, the answer to the what question. What is professional development? And this is absolutely fascinating, and I've loved doing the research for this. So the term professional development was first deployed in 1857. 1857. Who knew this was a thing? But really, that's not a surprise, because the professions themselves were being formed through the 19th century. And so it's not surprising if professions were forming, then professional development would be part of that story. How brilliant is this? So many fields and disciplines, professional development is part of what they do. Engineers, lawyers, health professionals, nurses in particular, the military, and of course I should say teachers. Teachers and professional development go together like bread and butter. Boom. So professional development is part of lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is this big thing. Professional development is part of lifelong learning, but it's a very small and precise slice of it. It's focused on concrete deliverables for your career. Okay, so professional development can be pleasant. It can enable you to be a bit of a self-starter, can have a bit of sort of self-help in it if you like, or it can be mandatory and required as part of regulatory requirements. It can be formal through degrees, but it can also be sort of pre-service or in-service or during service or post-service. So it can exist anywhere in the cycle of employment. So in service professional development, whether it's pre or post in-service development, it focuses on skill development to gain relatively straightforward personal professional skills. So this is when you start to have the stuff like team functioning skills. So getting teams to function better. Time management, or the famous one, having difficult conversations. Having difficult conversations, all the training around that. So professional development is about exposure. And I love this. It's about exposure. Exposure to ideas and disciplines and skills that are beyond your experience. Okay, so professional development is the continual learning of a person throughout their career. It certainly can maintain professional credentials, very important in engineering, accountancy as well. It can also maintain currency in your field. So if you had a doctor who didn't do professional development, I wouldn't be going to that doctor because like medicine changes. Yeah. So professional development keeps us all current. These programs are unique. They involve diverse learning methods. They're often very different from undergraduate or postgraduate learning methods and teaching methods. And topics are very much bespoke and fit into what's required for you at this particular point of your career. So this is interesting. You are in charge. But professional development must always start with you and you being honest with yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And how are you going to work on them? What is your plan for achievement and change and growth? Okay, so professional development can be incredibly quick. Think about LinkedIn Learning, think about our smash cuts. We have a professional development program, hi Olivia, we have a professional development program where people come in, 30 minutes of infusion, 30 minutes while having a cup of coffee and they leave. So it can be in, out, shake it all about, great, and it can be, say, a formal degree that can take years. That's the span of what we're dealing with here. Now, a lot of these sessions right now with professional development, they're offered online. So unlike every other bit of teaching and learning in many ways, PD is much more digital. And it has to be because PD is designed to fit around your life, your job, and your current responsibilities. Professional development has particular characteristics. It is often situated in practice, so we refer to communities in practice, communities of practice. It is collaborative, and the number one characteristic is it always incorporates reflection and evaluation. There are lots of different genres of formal professional development. There are, of course, as we've talked about, formal degrees that can be part of professional development, but coaching has been a very big area in the last 10 years or so. Communities of practice. Mentoring is a big word in universities. We'll talk about that in a sec. But reflexive practice and, of course, huge micro-credentials. Last 5-10 years, micro-credentials is the thing. So as you can see, you've got a really wide choice to pick and mix what suits you at this time. And I'll just give you a few examples of how this can be deployed for you. So you've got, say, consultation. What that means is a consultant comes into your business or organisation or lab and solves some problems. Look, this can be useful, but for me, when you bring a consultant in, it's a very reactive issue. So in other words, you've got a problem in the team. There is a problem, and to manage that problem, someone from the outside has to be paid to come in and offer strategies to solve it. Now, it can work, but my argument about professional development is it's best configured to be predictive. So what do you think you're going to need, and to frame and shape your future? So the consultant, great, important, but it can be a band-aid. Hopefully under the band-aid the problems can heal, but it's still a bit late. We've also got coaching. Coaching's an interesting one. I've done a graduate certificate in coaching from a uni in the States actually, and did it 5-6 years ago. And coaching's become a bit of a thing, a bit of a word. Coaching offers a way to hire a person with particular expertise in a specific area that you want to develop, often a specific skill set. And what happens is, through a coaching methodology, there is an observation stage, so the coach watches you. There's an observation stage, there's a reflection on that observation, and then there is, if you like, an action for change model at the end. So not just a plan for change, but an action model for change to implement it. So look, coaching, it can create some very good and quick results as long as you've done the homework going into coaching. So you know what's going right and wrong, and then the coach can help you create a plan for the future. And I'll talk about one more model, and that model is mentoring. Mentoring, and of course universities, mentoring exists a lot. I'm not a big fan, as most of you know, but mentoring is a strategy to create and enhance an awareness of a person at a particular point in their career. So using the advice, the experience of one other person to offer a mirror, a reflective mirror about what is going right and what is going wrong, and then provide a structured opportunity for reflection and improvement. So that's the mentoring model. It works quite well, I think, for early career researchers, I think. There's some research on it that shows that it does for ECRs. So professional development matters a lot. Huge. Matters a lot. Matters for individuals and matters for the workplace, because professional development allows you as a worker to adapt. And every single one of us, I mean, they use the cliched word agile in management speak, but we have to adapt on a daily basis. Stuff, good stuff, bad stuff, is happening every day, and we have to adapt. And the way we learn to adapt is through professional development. And, you know, I'm not a hypocrite on this team. Hopefully I'm never a hypocrite, but just so you know, I'm not just talking about this and not doing it. This is everything to me. Professional development changed my life. And I mean, I finished my research masters in 1992, I finished my PhD in 1994, okay? That's a reasonably straightforward narrative for someone of my age. But when I entered that master's degree, I'd already completed 2 bachelor degrees. And when I entered that PhD, I'd not only completed the 2 bachelor degrees, one first class honours obviously, but also 2 master's degrees before I went in to the PhD. So as you can see, I had a chunk of formal learning before I entered a research higher degree. And so I believe in learning, I believe in education, you can see it. But can I say none of those qualifications prepared me to be a knowledge worker. None of those qualifications prepared me to teach in any way, shape or form. I had no expertise in teaching at all. Did 2 research degrees, nothing on teaching throughout, how to write a curriculum, do assessment, how to mark, nothing at all. So a PhD also does not teach you how to be an active citizen, does not teach you how to disseminate research, does not teach you about research communication. So it's assumed that the PhD is the only thing you're going to require as preparation to work in a university. And you know what? That is the furthest point from right you will ever see. It is so wrong. So you see the problem going on here. What's occurring now is that academics of my age did their PhD, and did their PhD a long time ago. And a PhD is called a terminating degree. Sounds a bit deathly, but it's a terminating degree. It's seen to be your last one. So a lot of people take that adjective really seriously. And so, you know, they did their PhD in 1994 or 5, and they stopped at that point. And they've done nothing since then. So you can see why their attitude to lifelong learning is very, very different, because they did a qualification a long time ago and they stopped. So that's why it's incredibly tough to convince supervisors to do professional development to improve what they do. They have experience, absolutely, but it's never sort of crossed their mind that it may be a bad experience, and that generation after generation after generation of students, they're replicating this bad experience because they've never had an intervention from the outside so that they know what they don't know. So professional experience is an intervention in your experience, an intervention in business as usual, and most importantly, this is everything to me, most importantly, professional development is an intervention in your lens. Most of us, when we're wandering around the world, don't realise that we have a lens in front of us. We think we see reality. We don't. We are seeing through our lens of experience. And what professional development does is it loans us other experiences on the basis of research. So we suddenly see that our lens is just that, one lens. And there are many lenses. And when we look through all those different lenses, it improves how we see. And also importantly, as part of what I do in professional development, it's not about sharing my experience. I'm some boring bird, I don't matter at all. It's about letting the research lead the professional development. So what does the research say to improve what we do? So professional development is a set of tools. It's resources, it's training sessions with the singular goal to improve your effectiveness. Okay. Now, this effectiveness can be directly in your research life. So PD can teach you statistical packages, teach you how to do a literature review, a scoping review, teach you information literacy skills. This stuff will save you time. It can also give you career development. So clear-headedly, you understand your options. Now, since completing my PhD, so since I finished my PhD, here we go, see if I can remember them all. I've done a Bachelor of Education, a Master's of Education, a Graduate Diploma in Internet Studies, a Graduate Diploma in Gastronomic Tourism. Yes, that is a thing, no laughter. And I'm currently enrolled in a Master's of Leadership. Currently, now. And that's besides the coaching certificates I've done, all the MOOCs I've done, and the weekly gigs I do with LinkedIn Learning. Now, looking at you. Hi. Must not get emotional. I cannot convey to you how much these qualifications and these professional development packages have given me. They have made me, not only as a worker, they've made me as a human. And if you're just interested in the coin, and why wouldn't you be, just so you know, I did the Bachelor of Education and the Master of Education after the PhD. And on the basis of those two qualifications, a couple of jobs ago, I got a Professor of Education and was Head of School of Teacher Education, the most highly paid job I've ever held. So if I hadn't had those 2 degrees that I got after my PhD, I wouldn't have got that job. Yeah, boom. So it gives you a workplace advantage. Right. Now, in terms of research, and I did this work for you, the qualifications I've gained since my PhD are responsible for 55 of my 240 refereed articles and book chapters, and 5 books of my 20 books. So as you can see, therefore, professional development has also given me research innovation and a research advantage. Then there is, and I'll use the sort of hip phrase, then there is personal growth. The capacity, the privilege to continue to learn, to continue to test myself and learn about new institutions. That's brilliant. It also keeps me malleable, porous, and outward. What a gift learning is. And that gift keeps giving to us through professional development. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.